So here's a very brief history of the Bacon's Rebellion, the effects of it, and how it's still present here today in the what is now the U.S. So very quick history: the Bacon's Rebellion happened in 1676. It was when European indentured servants and enslaved Africans partnered together, banded together to help Nathaniel Bacon, who was a wealthy merchant who migrated from England to the Virginia colony, and they rebelled against the government to get land, get Powhatan land more specifically. So these two groups who were both servants, both both in servitude, indentured servitude for Europeans and slavery for Africans. They banded together against with a wealthy Englishman to get Powhatan land. As a result of that, the social locations of black and white, the races of black and white, were formed. With that came value placed on those social locations. Whites were able to purchase land, not the best land. They were also able to arm themselves to gain access to weapons, and they also were able to patrol over those who were deemed black. Those who were deemed black, on the other hand, were not able to congregate, were not able to protect themselves, protest, and they were put into perpetual slavery, meaning that if they birthed someone, that child would become a slave for life. European indentured servants, what they did, they were able to work their way out of servitude, so their children would not be guaranteed servants. So that goes into effect when Americans moved south, or the English and then the Americans moved south, where the Spaniards were already colonized, had already colonized what is now the southeast. So it became very easy to pick who was the lesser. So what was happening in the southeast at that time was joint rebellions by both the indigenous and enslaved Africans against the Spaniards in what is now the Carolinas and Georgia, as well as Florida. So what the English did on their way south was to pick apart the Spaniards and the Europeans and the indigenous. Because there was already value placed on race, and race had already been created, it was very easy to tell those who were deemed white, hey, you get to patrol these folks. If you patrol these people, you can gain access to land. Not the best land, but gain access to some land. And it wouldn't be until much later that those same poor European white folks would be able to be deemed American citizens once the U.S. came to be. The reason I bring this up is because right now we're seeing a lot of attacks on immigrants, we're seeing a lot of attacks on trans people, a lot of attacks based on social location and identity. And what people have fallen into, that hopefully they're waking up to now, is that if you do that, if you cheer on someone else's oppression, you're just allowing yourself to be groomed for when they come for you. So what they did back in 1676 is give those who were deemed white the value just a little bit higher than those who were deemed black, by way of giving land, by way of giving authority, by way of giving them protection with weapons. So if you buy that little bit of privilege and you see yourself as higher than, because of your proximity to whiteness, proximity to whatever is deemed acceptable, you are grooming yourself to be next. What I mean by that is that we're seeing non-trans people in the LGBT community, cheer on the oppression of trans people because, hey, it doesn't affect me. We're seeing non-Latinos, non-immigrants cheer on the oppression of immigrants, of Latinos, because again, this whole ICE stuff does not it bleeds onto those who are not immigrants. Puerto Ricans, Mexican Americans, they predate a lot of folks in what is now the U.S., especially Mexican Americans in the Southwest. A lot of them are of indigenous descent. And even if we're talking about European blood, Spaniards were here since the 16th century. So a lot of Mexican Americans do predate folks who are not Latino, who are not Mexican American in what is now the U.S. So people are celebrating that oppression. They're saying, hey, it doesn't affect me. I am not one of them. Even the Latinos themselves, they're saying, or even immigrants themselves, they're saying, I'm naturalized. I came in the right way. It doesn't affect me. So little by little, we're seeing this the layers come off and seeing, oh, they're going after people who rely on government assistance, which mid covers all races and all ethnicities. So I just want people, and I think it's very strategic that history is not being taught, because this is nothing new. This is, again, has been happening since pre 1776, a whole century prior, because those folks back in 1676 saw that if the classes of European indentured servants, enslaved Africans, who arguably were in the same class, were going through the similar things, if they were able to band together to demand land, to demand rights, even if they were doing it even if they were doing it to further displace the Powhatan peoples, they could overthrow the powers that be. And I really need people to focus on up and down instead of social locations side to side. What I mean by that is that at the end of the day, even if you are white, the elitist folks, they are going to eat their own. They're going to eat their own, as in they're going to eat their own folks racially, because poor whites are not going to be of use to them. Disabled whites are not going to be of use to them. LGBT white folks are not going to be of use to them. So do not cheer on other people's oppression. Do not think that you are free from all this just because of your proximity. And it goes for all social locations. I got my education at Loyola University of Chicago, sociology and anthropology, with a minor in Black World Studies. So this is nothing new to me. This is something that I like to talk about. I am a history buff. I'm not a historian. There's plenty of historians who have degrees in that. I'm not one of them. I just like history. And it's very strategic that history is not being taught, because if we knew all of this, if we had been taught this in school, like all the other stuff, we would be able to recognize it and be like, hey, you know what? We know this playbook already. We know how the story is going to end. We can choose a different ending because we know how to stop it. So yeah, all I just came to say, I want to make it a bit more brief, is that the effects of Bacon's Rebellion, or the response to Bacon's Rebellion, is still true, and I really need people to utilize the resources we have with JSTOR, Google Scholar, and so many other legitimate academic resources, so that we could dig into the history, so that we're not doomed to repeat it. Because again, all the stuff, none of this is new. All of this has happened before.